Yes, sir. I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what we're attempting to do here. Eric, would you mind putting in front of our senators Article 10, please? Drew, help me here a little bit. Article 10 alleges constitutional bribery. Do you see that?
Yes, sir, I do.
It says in the second paragraph, specifically, Paxton benefited from Nate Paul providing renovations to Paxton's home. Did I read that right?
Yes, sir, you did.
You understand that's the allegation being made, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you had told us about a conversation you heard at the Paxton's Terrytown home, right?
Yes, sir.
It was you, it was General Paxton, and it was a gentleman named Kevin Wood in the kitchen, correct?
That is correct.
Now, of course, you've told us all that you never saw Nate Paul at General Paxton's home, true?
That is correct.
And you knew that the Paxton's home had water damage, right?
Correct.
And you knew Kevin Wood was the contractor, right?
That is correct.
And you knew that the Paxtons had decided to do some additional renovations at the same time they were fixing the water damage, right?
Yes, sir.
And you say you were in the kitchen with General Paxton and Kevin Wood, and they were talking about redoing the countertops, right?
That is correct.
And the mention was that Angela wanted granite countertops, right?
That General Paxton and her had both decided they would like granite countertops, correct?
And you said that at some point the cost of that was mentioned to be $20,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you can't tell us here whether the Paxtons actually got these $20,000 countertops, can you?
No, sir.
Now, one way we could figure that out is for all of us to go to the Paxtons' home right now, couldn't we?
Yes, sir.
I mean, Your Honor, we could right now, if the court would allow it, get on a bus and drive over to Terrytown and look at the Paxton's countertops. Could we do that, Your Honor?
Objection relevance, Your Honor. He can bring in photographs if he chooses to that were taken at a current time period.
I'm going to overrule. You simply ask a question of something I could do.
Yes, sir. And we may make a motion in that regard, but maybe we can fix it in this way, Your Honor. We had previously looked at an exhibit put into evidence by the House Board of Managers. Let's look at House Board of Managers 703. And Eric, if you would, turn to the fourth page of this exhibit that's in evidence. And we can see here, can we not, that Kevin Wood has a email that's sent on July 4th, 2020. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And he attaches some pictures of the home at that point in time, right?
I can't see that, but I do see that there are attachments.
Okay, now let's turn over, Eric, if we could, to the page bait stamped 29672 within that exhibit. And pull that up so everybody can see. And try to bring that picture up so we all can see it, Eric. All right, now we can see what that kitchen looked like as of July of 2020, can't we?
Yes, sir.
I want you to look very carefully at it. Can you see the stove?
Yes, sir.
Can you see the countertops?
It's a little bit grainy, but yes.
And that's how the house looked when you were in that kitchen with General Paxton and with Kevin Wood, isn't that right?
It was mostly covered up by renovations, but yes.
Now, so this is, we'll call this the before, okay?
Yes, sir.
This was the before, the suggestion that we're going to make those countertops granite, right?
Yes.
And we're going to redo the cabinetry, right? That's another thing you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
All right, now let's go back, if we could, to the picture that's in evidence and marked as AG 371. And bring that up. Eric has the most stressful job in this trial. No pressure, Eric. Okay. Here we have a picture of that same kitchen. Is that true?
It would appear so, yes.
And you see the same countertops that you saw in the previous picture, don't you?
It would appear so, yes.
And you see the same cabinets as in the previous picture, right?
Again, it would appear so.
So the question is,
I'm going to
when-
object, Your Honor, to relevance. I don't believe this is in the packet that we're referencing. Mr. Busby could cite me if I'm incorrect.
I've already said this is in evidence at AG 371.
Overruled.
The question is, when was AG 371 taken, right?
Yes, sir.
Because if this picture was taken on August 22nd of 2023, then anybody with any common sense would know that nothing was done to the cabinets or the countertops, right?
That would be correct.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Before we testify about it, just confirm with me that what you've been handed, which is now,
Objection, Your Honor, to publishing a document that's not in evidence that he has not attributed for the record.
I have not published anything at this point, Your
The
Honor.
picture is on the screen, Mr.
That's the
Busby.
picture AG 371. This is something different.
Overruled.
Now, take a look at what I've handed you, AG 1051, and would you confirm with me that the picture you're holding in your hands is the same picture that we see on the screen, which is AG 371?
It appears so, yes.
And do you see the exhibit you're holding in your hand has, in fact, the date and where the picture was taken?
It does.
Your Honor, we offer AG 151.
Have you shown it to the defense?
May I see a copy and the date that was referenced?
It's coming to both of us. We'd like to have one. Okay.
Give a
We'll
copy
give it
to the
them
other
first.
side,
Give it to them
please.
first. And you can give us a copy. Sir, you can give us a copy. Oh, that's the only one you have?
You have another copy?
Mr. President, I don't want to stave off his direct, but cross, but I think that I can clear something up if I could take Mr. Wicker on a brief for Dyer. I think he's been misled as to the date and time of the photograph he had originally identified.
Again, Your Honor, I'm asking this witness if he has now the date the picture was taken on a cell phone, the exact same picture that's already in evidence. It's not very hard. We're going to get to the truth here.
Overruled.
Tell us, sir, the date of the picture you have in your hand.
It states that it was Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023 at 4:50 p.m.
And where was the picture taken?
It says Austin, Terrytown.
Your Honor, we offer AG 1051.
Do you object?
I do, Your Honor. Objection hearsay. He hasn't established a proper predicate to make it relevant to this trial. It doesn't have an address, and Mr. Wicker cannot say that he fairly and accurately depicts something that he's actually seen.
Overruled.
Now, Eric, please publish for the ladies and gentlemen of this distinguished jury the picture of the Terrytown Paxton home that was taken in August of this year. Do you see there, sir, that the cabinets have never changed?
It would appear so, yes.
Do you see there, sir, that the
President,
countertops have never changed?
Mr. President, I'm sorry. I must insist. He's provided metadata, but without any source for it. I am not trying to impugn his character, but this is a court of law, and he has to establish the predicate for the information that's contained below. He has not done that, and he intends to rely upon it. It is hearsay.
It's in evidence already, Your Honor. You've ruled on it. It's in evidence.
Your Honor, with all respect to Mr. Busby, he's misleading you. The photograph is in evidence. The information contained beneath it is not. That's what he's asking you to do now.
Again, we can look back with the court reporter. I offered 1051. The court allowed it.
In that case, Mr. President, it is fully within your discretion to correct an error. I am not conceding that it is admitted, but if it were, in light of the fact that he cannot establish that anything beneath that photograph is true and he intends to dance upon it, I would ask that the court help correct that issue.
That picture, Your Honor, as you can tell, is the same picture that's in evidence. The only addition to it is now we know exactly when the picture was taken and where it was taken.
Which establishes the exact issue, Your Honor. There is no one here who can establish whether or not this picture was in fact taken August 22nd, 2023, and any 12-year-old can create that graphic on a computer.
Your Honor, this lawyer is suggesting that me, an officer of this court, has somehow doctored a picture when I've offered to go over to the home right now and look at the kitchen and it'll look exactly like that. Why would somebody who has an obligation as a prosecutor to find the truth try to prevent the truth from coming out? This is in evidence. The picture's in evidence already. The court's allowed now the picture in evidence that shows when it was taken. I would allow.
I am not trying to impugn anyone's character. I am acting as a prosecutor and a rule follower, and I expect to do that here so no misimpressions are left with the court.
This is allowed in evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Now, you care about the truth, don't you, Drew?
Yes, sir.
You want the truth to come out, don't you?
I believe it has to.
Yes. It's important, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And now we see that the picture of the Paxton home, we can see that there were no work done on the countertops, can't we?
Yes, we can.
We can see that there was no work done in the cabinetry, can't we?
Yes, sir.
Pretty clear, isn't it?
From those images, yes.
Accusing someone of bribery for accepting granite countertops and new cabinetry is a very serious allegation, isn't it?
I would agree.
And you understand that Mr. Paxton, General Paxton, has no obligation to prove anything, right? He's being accused.
Yes, sir.
He didn't have to prove anything, does he?
Yes, sir.
But we've proven that the countertops were not altered in any way, haven't we?
The countertops appear to have not been altered.
The cabinets have not been altered in any way, have they?
It would appear that way, yes, sir.
And in fact, we've created a comparison picture. It's Exhibit 1052, AG 1052. May I approach? Can we agree, Drew, that 1052 that you're holding in your hands is a picture, the one on the left is the one we just looked at, right?
Yes, sir.
And the one on the right is the one we looked at from Kevin Wood, right?
That is correct.
And they're side by side on this exhibit, true?
That is correct.
And we know the one on the right was taken in July of 2020, right?
Yes, sir.
And we know the one on the left was taken years later, August 2023, don't we?
Yes, sir.
We offer 1052.
Do you have a copy of that? Would you please provide a copy?
To clarify, I see AG 371 and I see House Board of Managers 73 on 1052. Which one of these two photos is supposed to be 1051?
I'm not answering her questions, Your Honor. I've offered this exhibit.
Then I object to relevance.
This is a comparison, as I've laid out with the witness. He's established the relevance of this picture. It compares the one taken years back in 2020 with the one taken last month. We'd offer it.
Overruled.
Will it be accepted, Your Honor?
What is the number again?
1052.
1052 is admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. So can we agree, Drew, that your concerns now have been put to bed, at least with regard to the countertops and the cabinetry?
With regards to those two items, yes, sir.
I mean, now you're satisfied, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to show you some other documents and evidence. I mean, it shouldn't be that a friend, a family member has to prove their innocence, should it?
In a court of law, my understanding is that they're supposed to provide evidence to answer the charges. The answer to your question is no, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah. AG Exhibit 332. Thank you, Eric. This is a invoice. Can you tell us all the date of the invoice?
The date of the invoice is September 1st, 2020.
And the invoice is from whom?
Cupertino Builders.
And I just want you to keep that date in your mind, September 1, 2020. Can you do that for me, Drew?
Yes, sir.
All right, Eric, go to AG Exhibit 410. Can you see the date there on this USAA claims correspondence?
September 16th of 2020.
So here we are 15 days after that invoice that we saw previously.
Yes, sir.
And turn the page, Eric. And we can see as of that time, the claim being made with regard or with USAA is being administered.
Yes.
Okay. AG 428. Drew, this is a document that's in evidence from the state of Delaware. Do you see that?
I do.
And do you see it's a document related to Cupertino Builders?
I do.
And can we agree that that's the same entity that we saw in the September 1, 2020 invoice?
Yes, sir.
And would you look at the very bottom line that gives us the date that that company was incorporated in the state of Delaware?
It appears that the filing was April 16th of 2020.
So what we know is in April of 2020, Cupertino Builders was incorporated in the state of Delaware.
Yes, sir.
And we know that months later, it issued an invoice to the Paxtons for work on their home.
That's correct.
Go back to the invoice, please, Eric. Go back to AG 332, Eric. I just want to look at this invoice that was issued September 1, 2020, okay? Turn to the second page, Eric. Do you see the total amount invoiced to the Paxtons for the renovations of their home?
$121,000, 817.
You have a pen with you?
No, sir, I do not.
Drew, would you do me the favor of writing down the amount of that invoice on your Post-it note there? $121,617.
Yes, sir.
And we know, of course, that Cupertino Builders was a Delaware corporation as of the time this invoice was issued.
That is what it says.
Let's look now at AG Exhibit 48. And turn, Eric, if you would, to the bait stamp EBT 184. These are some text messages between General Paxton and a guy we may hear from in this case named Chip Loper, all right? And could you pull that text up, Eric? We saw that invoice was due on September 30th, 2020, right?
That is correct.
And now we have a text from General Paxton to his blind trust, or his trustee of his trust, instructing him to make a payment, don't we?
That is what the text message says, yes.
And confirm with me, if you would, that the amount that Chip Loper, the trustee, is being instructed to pay is exactly the amount that's on your Post-it note that you just wrote.
I can confirm.
Say it again.
I confirm that.
Exact, right?
Yes, sir.
Eric, bring up AG Exhibit 47. So what we've seen so far, Drew, is we've seen an invoice that's due on September 30th, right?
Yes, sir.
We've seen a text from Mr. Paxton to his trustee instructing him to pay, right?
Yes, sir.
And we know those amounts are the same, true?
Yes.
And now what we have in front of us is a bank statement from Prosperity Bank, right?
That is what it says.
And would you please confirm with me, go to page, we're looking at AG 47, go to page 116, EBT 116. And would you confirm that the day after Mr. Paxton, General Paxton, sent the text to his trustee that a wire was made from Mr. Paxton's account of $121,617?
I can.
And is that the same number that you wrote on your Post-it note?
Yes.
And let's go to AG 333. Do you see here that this is another record from a bank, BBVA?
I do not see BBVA. Oh, yes, I do. Okay.
Okay.
At the very top.
Business Choice Checking account?
Yes, sir.
And can you confirm that that account received a wire in the exact same amount as you wrote on your Post-it note?
Yes.
And it matches to the letter, to the penny, the amount of the invoice
Yes.
and the amount of the wire out of the Paxton's account?
I don't see where this says that this is the Paxton's account.
We saw the previous Paxton's account. What we've seen is the invoice, the wire out, and the wire in, haven't we?
Yes.
Okay. When you raised your concern, because, I mean, that's what you raised it first with some of the folks in the office. Is that how it went?
I sought advice from a trusted individual who brought me into the office first, yes.
Is that Brickman?
No, sir, that was Mark Rylander.
Okay, so you went to Rylander and said, look, I heard something that sounds a little weird. What do I do?
Yes.
Because you didn't know what to do about it.
No, sir.
And what he told you to do, hey, just raise it with General Paxton, right?
His advice was that if I was comfortable raising it with General Paxton, then I do so, and that I also informed Blake Brickman as my direct report.
Okay. And he told you that your understanding was just wrong, didn't he?
That is what General Paxton said, yes.
He also told you he appreciated you bringing that to his attention, right?
That is correct.
And you accepted that, didn't you?
Yes.
And it seemed logical, didn't it?
I still had some questions, but yes, I did take it at face value.
And he never told you not to tell anybody, did he?
No, sir.
I mean, he never said, hey, keep it on the down low, Drew, did he?
No, sir.
He told you specifically, Drew, I'm paying for these renovations, but I appreciate you sharing that with me, but that is not what this is, right?
Yes, sir.
And you took his word for it, didn't you?
I took his word for it.
Now, you don't have any personal knowledge about any relationship General Paxton may or may not have had with anyone named Laura Olson, do you?
I've only witnessed them together the one time.
So you don't have any personal knowledge about their relationship other than you saw a woman come out of an elevator, right?
I saw Laura Olson come out of an elevator, yes.
Okay. Now, these trusted people you mentioned in the office, you were talking to them often, weren't you?
On a daily basis,
Y'all were friends.
yes.
Did you know they took General Paxton's name off the letterhead?
I don't know what that's
Objection, Your
referring
Honor.
to.
Facts not in evidence
I'm
and
asking if
proven
he
to be
knows.
false in the course of this trial.
Sustained.
Did you ever discuss with them taking General Paxton's name off his own letterhead?
No. I don't
Objection,
know.
Your Honor. Question calls for hearsay, and it's facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
Now, just so we're clear, you are not accusing or providing any evidence that General Paxton did anything wrong in this case, are you?
The only evidence that I bring to the table is what I overheard and what I've reported. That is it.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Watch your foot. I don't want to hit your foot there. That's all right. Your witness.
Thank you. Mr. Wicker, you sometimes ran personal errands for General Paxton, is that right?
That is correct.
When you did that, were you advised which service you were using, the campaign fund money or work money? Did you have to attribute where money was spent or your time was spent?
I wasn't compensated for most of those services, so no, I was not.
Okay, thank you. The second, because Mr. Busby asked you extensive questions, you told us that the damage was in the bedroom, correct?
Yes.
And did you see actual renovations anywhere in the home outside of the bedroom?
Yes.
Is it fair to say if you knew people were looking into your countertops and your cabinets, you might choose at that point not to get them upgraded?
Objection,
Yes.
speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. Do you know, in the course of working with the adjuster and looking at Steam Clean and those groups that work for the insurance side, or let me do this differently. Do you know that payments were made by insurance?
I do not know that firsthand, no.
But we've all taken as a given, I think, through the course of talking to Mr. Busby, that more further renovations were done, correct?
Yes, and that's what the document said.
Okay. I want to clarify something else, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot. When Mr. Busby was showing you pictures of the kitchen, do you have an independent memory now in regards to what those what the countertops looked like, or are you taking his word for it?
To the best of my recollection, those were the countertops.
I do not want to lead, so I'm going to ask you a question only because of a prior conversation. The answer doesn't really matter, but I want to clarify. Didn't you say redo the granite countertops when we first spoke? Meaning what was being changed may or may not be granite again?
That was a mistake on my part, and as I mentioned to both you and Mr. Busby, I had to amend that statement to be more consistent with other statements made to law enforcement.
I see. So you've already had a conversation specific about this with Mr. Busby?
I did.
Okay. Have you and I had this particular conversation?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Okay. And so when you made that correction for yourself, it's not because you were lying the first time, right?
No.
Okay. What is the most relevant part of that conversation with Kevin Wood? The renovations, which we know took place, which people only know about because of you, or the state of the cabinets and countertops?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading, number one, and number two, I don't think it's appropriate to ask the witness what's most relevant. That's the court's job.
I think I've made the point. It's okay. I'll move on.
Sustained.
Thank you. How many times did you hear the phrase, "I'll have to check with Nate"?
3 times
Over the course of one day or multiple days?
in the course of one conversation.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any question then that on 3 different occasions, the response to a question directed at Kevin Wood about financial impact of renovations was, "I'll have to check with Nate"?
That is correct.
Since you've already spoken to Mr. Busby, let me ask you a few questions about that. How did your conversation go? Did you call him or did he call you?
Whenever we were in preparing for this trial, every effort was made whenever the House team reached out to offer the same thing for the defense. And it was in response to that, in preparation for this testimony here today, that my counsel and I both reached out to Mr. Busby's team to have a conversation prior to me taking the stand.
It's an honorable and fair thing to do. Had you made prior efforts to speak to Mr. Busby or Paxton's team?
My legal counsel had, yes.
On your behalf?
Yes.
And at any point until the last week, did they take you up on that?
They did not.
He asked you a lot of questions about whether or not you overheard an agreement between Nate Paul and Ken Paxton. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do most people who are working together stand on top of a mountain, hands on their hips, and say, I'll do this for you if you'll give me X?
Objection, Your Honor. That's an improper question. Leading and
Sustained.
I mean, come on.
Do you understand that law enforcement and this investigative body can use circumstantial evidence to
Objection,
determine
Your
whether or
Honor.
not there's a conspiracy?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Objection. Improper question. Speculation.
Sustained.
Yes, Your Honor. Let me do this differently then. Do you have any memory of when the Paxtons moved back into their home?
This would have been probably August, September timeframe, if I had to guess.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? For the record, I'm showing him what's marked as 698 and not in evidence as a document to refresh his recollection. Mr. Wicker, do you recognize that?
I do. If you can just give me 1 second to read.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a copy of that, Your Honor?
And we'd like to have a copy.
I mean, in candor, there are multiple copies over there, but I don't have them. May I take his and pass it around?
Yes. Give it to the defense first. We'll stop the clock for a moment. Are you ready?
I am.
You can resume the clock.
Since we do have a copy for everyone, I'm going to change course, actually. This is a text message that's included in 698, which is a set of documents provided with a business records affidavit, which have been provided to defense, and they've had notice of it for over 14 days, at which point I would move to admit 698.
I have no objection to this, Your Honor.
The court will admit Exhibit 698 into evidence.
And would you publish? Thank you, Stacy. Who is this a conversation between?
This states to be a conversation between myself, Mark Rylander, and Jeff Mateer.
What is the date?
It appears to be July 19th of 2020.
Okay. And do you see any reference to when the Paxtons might be moving back into their home?
It appears that it was around that time frame. So judging by the context here, he had been storing clothes at the AG's office, and we moved those back around that time frame.
Okay. So fair to say then the Paxtons' home was at least renovated enough for them to return to it in the middle of July?
Yes.
And would it surprise you to know that nowhere in those Cupertino records is there an invoice or estimate at any time during June or July?
I did not see that.
Leading, Your Honor. I'm going to have to object to leading.
Sustained.
Next, let me ask you. Let's turn to item 683, which is already in evidence. And Mr. Wicker, I'm sorry to take advantage of you since you're on the stand, but I need to recap a couple of things Busby went through. Tell me, if you would, the date on this document.
September 30th of 2020.
This document has been admitted as what we refer to as the cease and desist letter, so notice to Brandon Kamek to stop working. Are you aware of that time frame in the office?
I am.
And do you know that Brandon Kamek reaches out to Ken Paxton to let him know their problems?
I learned this later, yes.
But does this email corroborate what you heard?
Objection, I'm sorry. He just said he heard it later. That's hearsay. Now she wants him to corroborate hearsay with something else improper.
Sustain.
Okay, let's look at the document itself. September 30th, cease and desist letter to Brandon Kamek. Let's look at item 130. Do you see the date on this letter?
September 30th, 2020.
Is that 130? Oh, yes, ma'am, please. Sorry, Stacy. Thank you. Do you see September 30th referenced on this document as well?
I do.
And in the records provided by Esther Blind Trust, this is the first conversation about payment to Cupertino. Would that surprise you?
I was not aware of Esther Blind Trust, so I'll take your word for it.
So, but September 30th, Brandon Kamek is notified that there's a problem. Ken Paxton finds out, and the first thing he does is tell the Esther Blind Trust to send $121,000 to someone else.
Okay.
I'm going to turn your attention to item 223. I think this is also not in evidence, so do not yet. It is in? I got thumbs up from the side. In that case, will you pull up item 223? I'm going to have you scroll down, Stacy, to the return. Do you recall General Paxton being out of town at the end of September, early October, as the whistleblowers are coming forward and law enforcement is being notified that they're concerned he's accepting bribes and misusing the office? These questions are no different than the way he phrases them.
If I could, without being interrupted. Your Honor, this is outside the scope. I just want to flag that for the court. I'm going to let her do this because I want to talk about a few of these things that are outside as well.
It is outside the scope, but he's not objecting, so he will be able to do the same.
Yes, Your Honor. If it would have been helpful, though, I took extensive notes. Mr. Busby opened up all of these doors for me. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're both out of scope, okay? You're both free.
On October 1st, do you know where General Paxton was in regards to the office? Did he come in?
No, ma'am.
And I'm going to have Stacy scroll down a little. Are these texts between you and Jeff Mateer?
Can you scroll up? Yes. Yes.
And what is it that you understood on October 1st was happening with the general?
I really didn't have an understanding at that time.
Did you think anything about the fact that he wasn't there or didn't want you to let people know what he was doing?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading, and he's already said he doesn't know.
Sustain.
I'm going to read from a document because it is in evidence. Says he has a lot to do out of the office and that I'm to tell anyone that asks that I don't know where he is. Is he telling you to lie?
I don't know that he's asking me to lie, just to state that I don't know where he is.
Stacy, if you would please turn to Exhibit 131. Pause for a moment. In the upper left-hand corner, do you see that this account is affiliated with the Esther Blind Trust?
I do.
The same organization that was being told to make payment the day before by text, at least according to the documents and evidence before you.
Yes.
Do you see, scroll down for me, do you see that same $121,000 payment, $617, being made as it was requested by Ken Paxton?
I do.
And do you see who the recipient is?
Cupertino Builders, LLC.
Miss Stacy, if you'll pull up 703 for me, please. I'd like to see page 21. All right, Mr. Wicker, do you see who is supposed to be the count holder on these documents? It's under business, choice, checking, specifically choice.
Cupertino Builders, LLC.
And do you see the first line in the transaction sheet?
It shows an incoming wire in the amount of $121,617.
Consistent with Cupertino being paid for remodeling or doing work at Ken Paxton's house, if that's what he has alleged, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's turn to page 3. These are the same records that include Kevin Wood, the contractor who you personally met, who helped facilitate whatever upgrades Ken Paxton might want, a person whose email address suggests he is Nate at World Class, and an individual named Raj Kumar. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Stacy, may we see the face of the business record affidavit? Do you see before you that the business records we've been referencing and that are already admitted belong to Cupertino Builders?
Yes.
Would it surprise you to know that, as Mr. Busby pointed out, it's when they were in Delaware and before they opened a Texas affiliate? Would you have any reason to be surprised by that?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you also see that the individual otherwise referred to as Raj Kumar is in here named, I'm gonna butcher it, frankly, on the second page? Narsima Raju Sigaraju.
I do see that.
It was a valiant effort. I saw your smile. Next, Stacy, may we see page 16? Is this the same invoice Mr. Busby showed you a moment ago?
It appears to be, yes.
The same invoice that he splashed in his press conference for representation of General Paxton?
Objection, Your Honor. Improper question. She's talking about a press conference? I mean, that's not proper.
I'm going to sustain, rephrase.
Stacy, if you would for me, please turn to page 22. Now, Mr. Wicker, in all of the records before you, if there had been payments or estimates or supplies or timelines or communication in regard to payment in any way, in regards to Ken Paxton and Cupertino, don't you think Mr. Busby would have pointed it out?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Sustained.
Then the very last thing I would like to ask you is this. In regards to the document, the invoice we had just looked at, this document is the metadata that was provided by Cupertino. It is already admitted into evidence. Please tell me what date that invoice was created.
October 1st, 2020 at 7:50 p.m. Central Standard Time.
After the whistleblowers, after he knows that you're aware of the renovations, after a cease and desist, after directing payment, only after all of those things does he get the first piece of documentation that would in any way credit that it was valid.
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
I guess I'll end where the defense began. There are no coincidences in Austin. But the next piece, I think...
Objection to the sidebar.
We've had a lot of sidebars in this
A little bit of sidebar.
trial. I'll give you a sidebar. They've had a few.
One sidebar.
Overruled. You're even now on sidebars, okay?
The very last piece, I wish I could have ended there, but I need to get in the Uber records we discussed yesterday. The court had already said that they could be admitted after extensive arguments between both sides. I just failed to offer on the record for their admission.
Go ahead.
House moves to admit item. Sorry. 700.
700 will be,
Take care of this.
we've already settled that, right? 700 yesterday. Okay, 700 will be admitted into evidence.
Your Honor, can we be heard on that? I think we have, I didn't know this would not be the right witness for this, but can we be heard on
Yes.
those records?
We spoke extensively and the court ruled yesterday.
Your Honor, we saw, I apologize.
I'm going to object to using the time, and may we approach.
Okay. We'll stop the clock for a moment. Approach.